Let's get more on that story. Let's welcome on the line our U.S. correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, a very good afternoon to you. Now, President Donald Trump is expected to talk over the phone with his South African counterpart, President Jacob Zuma. I know we can't really speculate at this point, Sherwin, but what can we expect? We know that he's already spoken to Nigeria's Buhari.
Well, maybe you'll ask President Zuma for some advice about how to handle his first State of the Union address that's coming up before the end of the month. I mean, just being humorous to begin with here. But I'm sure President Zuma could give him some tips on how to handle the opposition. Look, it's difficult to speculate on what they will be talking about, but let's remember the framework of this presidency in the United States. President Trump is embarking on a policy of America first. So everything that informs his discussions, whether he's fighting on a telephone conference with the Prime Minister of Australia, or whether he's having a conversation with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, his policy is about America first. So he wants to look probably at the strategic partnership that exists between South Africa and the United States, a strategic partnership that was started under the Obama administration and the Zuma administration, then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and our International Relations Minister Metin Mashabane. And this strategic partnership, Alicia, covers the areas of health. It covers areas of global peace and security, economic development, trade and investment. And so I imagine that AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which, as you know, was extended in 2015 for another decade, I imagine that President Trump will be asking very specific and pointed questions about how America is benefiting from that relationship with sub-Saharan Africa.
Sherwin, I mean, a lot of people are asking why the telephonic interview or conversation. Why doesn't he just invite him to come to the States or vice versa? But I mean, speaking of those strategic partnerships, how are the current relations between South Africa and the U.S. at the moment? I mean, a lot of people are fearful as to where exactly does South Africa or Africa fit in this new administration when it comes to those multilateral deals.
Well, given the very fact that this strategic partnership still exists and will likely continue under this administration, the relationship is very good. I mean, what you have happening today is the president of the largest economy in the world speaking to the president of, or as you mentioned, the presidents of the two largest and strategic economies in Africa.
Yes.
And so there's a great deal of strategizing to be done in terms of fighting terrorism on the continent. You mentioned President Buhari's conversation. There's a great deal of concern about the fight against Boko Haram is happening in West Africa. We have seen a memo sent by the then transition team, Alicia, to the State Department officials and the Pentagon before President Trump took office, raising questions about why the fight against, for example, the terrorist group Al-Shabaab in East Africa is taking so long. This memo that I'm referring to also raised very pointed questions about the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. Although it has created over 100,000 jobs in the United States, the Trump transition team was very concerned around the domination of, for example, petroleum imports from certain African countries that benefit oil companies and what they call in this memo corrupt regimes. So I imagine all of that will come up, in addition to, as you mentioned, most recent developments in terms of this travel ban that has really offended Africa. If we are to base our understanding on the comments of the former AU Commission Chair, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, when she made reference to the fact that they took our slaves and now they don't want to take our people. So look, I mean, I think all this is on the table. It's, as I say, difficult to speculate, but I think everything will be on the table in that discussion.
Sherwin, I know you'll give updates on our later bulletins. Let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that update. That is our U.S. correspondent there, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, and you will be getting an update on that telephonic interview or conversation between South African President Jacob Zuma and U.S. President Donald Trump.